This is Michaela Rivera from Cottage Grove, Oregon, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my friend D.Cal.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, D.Cal.
Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. This is your boy D.Cal here from the E.I.T.H.R podcast from the GNS HQ in Northern California. Happy Monday to everybody. Hope everyone had an awesome weekend. And I hope this week starts off better than you expected. So what we're going to do is welcome all the new people to the podcast. So if you are chiming in from the West Coast, from the East Coast, from down south, from the Midwest, from anywhere else on the planet, we just want to say thank you very much for tuning in. And if you are a returning listener, much appreciate your patience and your time. This is episode number 89 of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. The elephant in the room is who we are. And we like to talk about things and discussions and topics and things like that is usually difficult for people to have in person or online or anything of that nature. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to get right into it. We like to do this thing where we start off by giving a shout out, and we like to do this thing where we call inspirational and motivational. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to make that happen. So the first thing we're going to do is give a shout out to, who do we want to give a shout out to today? Normally I have somebody on hand. This time I don't have anybody specifically written down. So let's see. Oh, looks like my Facebook was temporarily blocked for a post that I do not know about. Maybe my account was hacked. Who knows? So, anywho, we're going to get right back into that, so that kind of threw me off. So, shout out to the person who hacked my Facebook. Yeah, good on you, whoever you may be. So, that's interesting. Anyway, so that's where we are right now. Motivational, inspirational. We're going to go ahead and do this. Sometimes you got to brace for the reality. Nobody is comfortable moving like you. You have to understand the reality. You may be doing something that people just aren't comfortable with doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. It just clearly means that you're making moves that either is going to expose somebody else's lack of discipline. It's going to expose somebody else's lack of commitment. It's going to expose somebody's lack of support and what it is that you have got going on for yourself. The moves that you are doing are probably moves that are going to benefit you as well. Where other people are probably comfortable with making moves that benefited them mainly. And you may not be that kind of person. You may be the kind of individual who wants to do something that's going to benefit you and is going to benefit everyone around you. Keep in mind, not everyone thinks like you. Not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone has the same goal in mind, even though it seems that they're heading in the same direction. You have to understand that. Some people are going to attempt to leave you behind because they are afraid of the way you may lead. And it's a hell of a mirror for them to realize their self-reflection of what they're trying to do, which is not so much catapult them, but mainly prevent you from being catapulted in front of them. It's a dirty game. This envious, this, I don't want to say spiteful, jealousy. It's very, very, oh, man, it can be. It can be. So keep that in mind, that not everyone's going to be moving with you, and that's okay. That's all right. Sometimes you have to dump the load in order for you to be able to maneuver the way you need to. So keep that in mind, y'all. You gotta accept that. As difficult as it is, you have to understand and you have to accept that. Social media, you guys can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. And the handle is the E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R. You can also follow us on TikTok for the parent company, which is the GNS Inc., THEGNSINC. And you're more than welcome to subscribe to our TV channel, which is GNSETV.com. So make sure you guys go ahead and check it out. So we're going to talk about some things, like I said, in the description. And these things that we're going to talk about, there's going to be more thought-provoking. Also, give a shout out to Kelsey. That's probably who I should give a shout out to. That's what I'll do. Give a shout out to Kelsey. For her and I had a conversation earlier, and we're game planning for the Triple U to finally make his debut next week. It was supposed to be this week, but things happen. So it's going to be next week. We're going to link up again on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we're going to discuss exactly what we're going to bring to you guys. So you'll be able to check that out on Twitter and the Instagram page, which is @_the triple U_ and know what's going on. And we'll throw something else on the TV channel as well, so that way you can kind of get some going to know what's going on in the world. We did a lot of looking today, and there's a lot of negative shit in the world. So we're going to try to bypass all that. It's your boy D-Cal, the E.I.T.H.R Podcast. We're going to be right back after this. Stay tuned.
Hi everyone, this is Kelsey and I'm the Vice Chief of Editing of the World Update. We're the branch of the GNS Inc. that are going to be responsible for presenting you with encouraging and uplifting news and updates that are happening within the local, regional, and global things that are going on. We feel there's enough bad news being broadcast in our lives, so why not hear something good? Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram @_the triple U_. Let's update and uplift.
Hey, this your girl Key, and I'm calling from Compton, and you listening to E.I.T.H.R Podcast with D-Cal.
All right, thank you very much for all we know, guys. This is D-Cal, the E.I.T.H.R Podcast. I finally got into my Facebook, and it says so anyway, bear with me. We're going to find out what it is Okay, so it said I shared something with nudity or sexual activity today on Facebook. And if anyone who knows me knows that this could be true, but I didn't post anything on my Facebook with anything like that. And so I'm just curious on what it was, because whatever was on my Facebook was obviously going to be on my social media as well. And honestly, I think there's a glitch in the system of Meta, because I don't even have anything in my notifications about something violating. It's just a restriction, which is, I don't understand it. I literally, this is interesting. Anyway, back to more important stuff. So, I'm listening to the radio this morning, and they were having this discussion about politics stuff. And I 100% get it. Not everyone is into politics, and not everyone likes politics. And when it comes to politics, it is a huge division between people. But one of the things that they were talking about makes a great deal of sense. And I'm looking for the tweet that I posted. And again, you guys can check the tweet out at the E.I.T.H.R, E.I.T.H.R. And so the tweet that I sent out, one quick second. It is, come on. Here we go. Why are people so divisive when it comes to their political preference? I know, big build up for that drop, right? And AKA the whatabouters. And it made me think real deep about this. Because they were having a conversation about how if you don't tell anyone your political party, like if you completely eliminate that from the conversation, most people get along just fine. Most people don't have any issue with whatever it is that they're talking about. And one of the co-hosts was saying how she has a friend that, that leans more right and leans more left. And after the conversation, they could not believe how funny the other person was. Both people couldn't believe how funny the other person is. And it's interesting because liberals believe that conservatives have like the worst sense of humor in the world, and conservatives believe that liberals have like the driest sense of humor in the world. Both people don't believe the other side is a valid human being. And they were speaking about where this huge division between the two parties came, and it was a really good flashback because it took me back to the 2000 election between Gore and Bush. And with the Supreme Court and how Florida had to go through a recount of votes, and the whole debacle with that, the whole mix-up with that, the whole drama with that, and how everybody both, apparently came to the conclusion that everything was legit. And I guess it was a really tight race between Gore and between Bush. It was a really tight race. But Bush wound up winning that election, where the Supreme Court said basically there was no foul play, and the people who were put in charge, if I remember the story correctly, the people who were put in charge were somehow associated, affiliated, or controlled by Bush's brother. So it gave the optics of it being favored to the right. And that's how Bush got his position as president during that election. And ever since that point, for the last 20 years, conspiracies has been on the rise astronomically when it comes to politics. I mean, anything that makes a person think of why something didn't go their way is the reason why something didn't go their way. I can understand you having an idea. I can understand you having the thought. I can understand you having the possible suggestion of, this is what I'm thinking. But a lot of people have this thought that what's in my mind is the reality of what it is. So therefore, that's what it is. And it's really annoying, man, because they also brought up the point where when Clinton was in office, because they were speaking about the situation going on with Trump and how he may possibly be indicted and how he possibly may be in jail. And then someone asked a question about how is this different between the Trump situation and the Trump situation and the Clinton situation. One, times are different. The mindset was different. The thinking with the world was just different. It was just completely different. So, with that said, Clinton had paid off somebody the way allegedly, supposedly, apparently. Trump paid off somebody allegedly, supposedly, apparently. And why it wasn't as big of a deal then as it is now, too, Republicans and Democrats tend to work together on a common goal, more so than now. Because Clinton I can't remember exactly what it was. I should go back and research this. He did something to where the economy was booming and everything was kind of on the rise, and even Republicans had to sit back and say, we don't agree with this guy because he's a Democrat, because he's more on the liberal side, but at least he has the economy going in the right direction. We can't fault him for that. Okay, cool. Nowadays, it's literally one side hates the other, despises the other, can't stand the other, wishes death on the other. It was never this bad. And so getting back to the point about the whatabouters, I have seen this in so many cases of conversation where you can't say anything negative about a political party of one side. Because if you do, then that person is immediately going to respond back, oh yeah, but what about? Oh yeah, well my guy did this, but what about your guy? Your guy did that. We're to the point now, and you can even say this is about, and just in the world in general, right? Where nobody cares about solving the problem. Matter of fact, no one even gives a damn about the problem anymore. What everyone's more concerned about is throwing dirt back at the other side. That's the concern, right? It's no longer about, hey, you guys did this, you need to stop. It's no longer about, okay, cool. Thank you for putting me up on game. I appreciate that. We'll fix it. It's now, oh yeah, well, you guys over there need to stop that. It's a tit for tat. That's kind of where we're at in the world now. And so you get people who are just tatting each other to death to where they no longer remember what the problem was. They're just too busy flewing accusations at each other and trying to one-up one another with their whatabouts. That one of the clearest things for me, and I don't know if you guys understand how this affects our lives, but it does. Because again, when the presidential election debate was going on between Biden and Trump, and those two guys were on stage, everyone remembers that conversation. Everyone remembers it on television. It was like primetime TV. They made an event out of it. Stupid. But that's when at that moment, when Biden was bringing up racial situations with Trump and accusations and what people had thought about his reputation and the labeling that he has based on what people have experienced with or around him. Then Trump brought up racial comments and things that Biden had done back, I want to say in like the 70s or the 80s. And then they started going tit for tat at one another. They started doing what about? And I'm sitting on my couch watching, thinking, we're at a point in the country right now, man, where we're watching two people who are attempting to be presidents of this country argue over who was more racist towards people of color. That is America right now in a nutshell. Instead of addressing the issue that I brought to your attention, you throw that issue back at me to deflect it. Now it becomes a volley. Any tennis players out there, you know what that is. Now it becomes a volley. We don't solve the problem. We just volley back and forth what each other did related to the problem. And it gets so bad that at the end of it, we walk away and can't stand the other person because of what was said to one another. How many people do you know in your life does that? How many people do you know that if you, I'm not talking just politics, but it made me think. When it comes to politics, how many people you know, you bring something up. Ladies, how many men have you been in relationships with where you address an issue that he has done or issues he has done, and instead of taking accountability and responsibility for those things, that person goes and says, oh yeah, well, what about you? Fellas, how many women have you been in a relationship with when you communicate, which we're not really known for communicating, but when we do open up to communicate, how many times have you attempted to say, these are the things that make me feel the way I feel in regards to our relationship? And the first thing she wants to do is throw back at you all the things that you've done wrong. Those are signs of toxic personalities. Understand something. Toxicity is running this particular country. Toxicity is running potentially your relationship, your household, your mindset. It took me a while to learn how toxic I was, because that was the environment. All I knew was someone blames you, you deflect it. It's the blame game. It's the what about. Your what about has to out what about the other person's what about. And whoever has the largest what about wins. That makes your argument. Whoever made the bigger mistake, you're the loser. Whoever calls out the biggest mistake wins the argument. All you're doing is spewing back and forth a bunch of shit that you had held up and bottled up inside, which created more toxic emotion, impossible resentment towards that person, towards those people. And again, if you're somebody that you can't talk to about these things without deflecting, maybe you are the problem that they're speaking about. You just don't want to admit it amongst yourself. That could be it. That could be it. Right? Accepting responsibility does not make you weak. Deflecting responsibility does. All because someone says you did something wrong doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you did something wrong to them. Now, because someone doesn't do what you want them to does not make them wrong. Hopefully there's a grown-up in the room that can understand the difference between blaming somebody for their faults and blaming somebody for your own faults. There is a huge difference between that. And I feel in the United States of America, we're ran by a bunch of people who are huge in toxic hypocrisy and ignorance. And that's what they promote. Here's the reason why politics is stupid. Out of all the years of politics being in charge of this country in particular, any country in general that's out there, name a country that politics has fixed the problems that were caused by politics. Don't worry, I'll wait. See, this whole thing talks about the whatabouters. What about the people who are creating laws for those that have to live by them, in which the people who are creating these laws are exempt from them? It's different when you have to live by laws made by those who don't have to follow them. That's a mindset, do as I say, not as I do. That type of mindset is a fucked up mindset to have because it creates resentment. And if you are a toxic, manipulative deviant, you want that because you're craving the reaction for them to do something which justifies your reaction or countermeasure to that person or to those people. Right? Some will call that a narcissist. That's deep, right? So, understand. You have to know who you're dealing with. You have to be able to read the room. You got to be able to know your faults. You have to know when to cut your losses. And you have to know when to be able to be the mature one and take charge. Whether the conversation, whether the situation, or whether it's your ass away from it all. You have to be able to know when to decipher which is which and when is when. That's huge. Okay? But again, what about us? When dealing with these kind of people, man, sometimes there's nothing you can say or do that's going to get through to them. You're just not. You're just not. Because the last thing they want to do is admit they are at fault. That's the last thing they want to do, is admit, my bad, I'm wrong. Granted, you get somebody who's willing to admit that she or he is wrong, that is not a time to pile on. That is a time to communicate. That is a time to comprehend. That is a time to compromise. If you have someone that is willing to say, you know what, you were right, I was wrong about that. That's not a sign of weakness, ladies and gentlemen. If you have someone to sit back and say, my bad, I fumbled, that's on me, that's on me. That is not a time for you to unleash all pent up hell on them. That is a time for you to sit back and say, okay, thank you. Here's what I feel we can do to correct it. Now, listen, we're in a generation right now where this is a transition, because we coming from a generation of generations of people who never exposed and shared and explained their feelings. So it's a melting pot of just weird shit. It is. Then you have to decipher what is what, where is where, right? Because every case is different. And now we're getting into a generation of all they do is share their feelings. They have to learn when it's good, when it ain't, how it is, how it shouldn't be. It's all a learning experience. You have to know the room. You have to understand not every person's going to hear you. Not every person's going to listen to you. Not every person is going to talk to you. Not every person is going to relate to everything that you're dealing with the same way. So you have to be able to chameleonize yourself with your environment. The whatabouters, those people are so toxic, or those people have so much toxic on them for being in a toxic environment. One of their biggest issues is being judged by those like them. Understand something. You are the environment. You are the company that you keep. And if you are steadily in an environment where toxicity is normal, it's very difficult for somebody to shed that layer and keep it off. Because right when they're healing, they're going to get burned and scorched and seared by that toxic environment all over again. So it's a work in progress. And they're going to have habits of lashing out and habits of shutting down. I'm a prime example of this, right? I'm a prime example of progress on expressing what's wrong, communicating, comprehending, and compromising. But I also know what it looks like because I also know what it feels. So, going back to the whatabouters, I don't really like dealing with those folks, personally. Just because a lot of them, they don't really know how to communicate or talk to anybody in a way that's constructive. So, next thing I'm going to talk about real quick before we bid adieu to today's episode is we were going to do a segment called where I travel to different places or whatnot and do the podcast from. That didn't happen today, unfortunately, because some things going on with the business. Sorry, there's a lot going on right now. I don't know if it's a mailman or whoever's at my door. So this has been an awesome day. This has been an awesome day for live podcasting. So hopefully you guys don't mind the background noise on that. That's why I sounded so distracted, because I don't know if someone's trying to get in my office or someone was trying to put mail in someplace. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So anywho, as I was saying, I was supposed to do an episode today abroad where it's called Meetup Monday, Mild Meetup Monday, where I travel and do the podcast live from some place, trying to engage with the company, with the people. But I had some stuff that was going on today with other aspects of the business, so I was not able to travel today like I wanted to. But again, that is something that I'm going to be bringing to you guys come next week. In addition, Kelsey and I, for the World Update, we're discussing earlier about some stuff. So we realized, because we were looking for stories, to bring to you guys something local, regional, national, global. Majority of the things that we looked into, man, were negative. There's a lot of negative news out there. A lot of hit and runs, a lot of shootings, a lot of robberies, a lot of arrests. It's almost as if all they really want to do is just put negative shit out there for us to be bombarded by negativity, which is weird. And personally, I don't like it because it gives this desensitization vibe that when something good happens, you're numb to it. I don't like that. We shouldn't be numb for positive, but excited for negative. To me, that shit's backwards. That's the wrong direction, in my opinion. And Kelsey shares the same opinion as well. So we're going to be doing our best, man, to bring you guys some positive stuff when it comes to the world. So just bear with us, please. Just keep hanging in there with us, and we're going to get this thing going. It's the beginning stages, trying to get momentum. But a lot of people have told me that I have too much going on. And I've said this, I don't know how many years. When someone tells you that you have a lot going on, especially when you're trying to create and establish and plant so you can grow, understand something. Those who say you have too much going on are usually the same people who don't have enough, right? It's like we said in the beginning, people are going to be uncomfortable with the way that you move. And if you're constantly moving in a way that's productive and doing something, it makes some people sit back and look at themselves as, I could be doing that, or I could have been doing that, or damn, I should be doing fill in the blank of what it is that they should be doing that they claim they wish they could do. You're making them realize they're not making any progress. So therefore, they want to tell you you're doing too much. Not understanding it's a negative reflection about you being progressive and them being stagnant. Okay? So I'm happy with the fact that I'm quote unquote doing too much, because I'm making progress in a lot of stuff that I have done. And from Rita to my sister-in-law to the teacher to Fuzz to my homegirl Face in Florida to Chastity out there in Florida, I'm doing something, right? Understand, as long as there's a progress and you see a result, that's a success, ladies and gentlemen. So don't let anybody douse your flame because they can't get hot. Understand that. Okay? That's important. So the Triple U is going to be up and running within the next week. Okay? So we got that going for you guys. Along with GNS ETV, I'm working on some playlists so that way when you subscribe to GNSETV.com and you go with Watch Live, there's going to be a playlist on there, which there currently is. So you're going to get, a couple episodes of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. You're going to get, there's I can't think of the name of it, a John Wayne film. There's a film with Robert De Niro. God, I'm drawing a blank on the name, that I put up there with a few other things going. So there's something for you to watch. But I'm working on more content. So there's also going to be, in the near future, a inspirational playlist, which is going to be pretty dope. This inspirational playlist is going to be nothing but encouraging quotes, posts, memes, videos, and images. So I want you to understand, I'm trying to do my best to change the world. Make this place better than what it was than when I got here. So that particular playlist is going to be, you turn on the channel, man, and you're going to have nice, easy, digestible instrumentals that I created with GNS Entertainment. And you can either listen to the beat and kind of just zone out and relax at your job or wherever you're at, or watch the screen, read the posts, read the memes, read the quotes, self-reflect, kind of self-fix yourself. And this isn't something to judge anybody. It's just more to help everyone. I'm also working on a playlist where it's soothing and relaxation. So you're going to get environments like the Golden Gate Bridge. You're going to get environments like the Sacramento Bridge. You're going to get things like this Rolling Hills in Santa Rosa. You're going to get things possibly like the Bay Bridge, the Hollywood sign, everything. We're trying to be the difference in the world, man. So, listen, I'm going to cut this episode. Thank you guys very much for listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Follow us on social media, TheEITHR on Instagram, on Twitter, the GNS Inc. on TikTok. Subscribe to GNSETV.com. Appreciate y'all. You guys have a good one. Be safe, and we out.
This is Sarah from Northern Cali, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D. Cal.